My name's Bernadetta Kasatya from Angelus Custos II, Surabaya. Before we start, do you know who nyak is? Well, I'm gonna tell you a story about nyak. She came into the world to the sound of wind and the slow drum of the sea, in a coastal village where mangrove roots tangled, like the stories of her people. Even as a child, she moved with a quiet insistence, an act of purpose in her small hands. They called her nyak. Though, to her family, she was a daughter who learned to ride a horse before she learned to fear the dark. Her eyes were the color of red charcoal. When she fixed them onto something, the thing knew it would be changed. The years before war were measured in simple rhythms. Rice fields, market days, the slow stitch of paddock patterns. The aunt learned the old songs and the way of woman, the art of bargaining, the patience of nursing a sick child, the discipline of tending a home. But she also learned to read the land, like a map written in shadows and tracks. Her father taught her to handle a kriss. Her brothers taught her to listen for the sound of footsteps that did not belong. When the first rumors of foreign troops arrived, soldiers who marched with a different language and different laws, she felt, in a place behind her breastbone, a cold that was not weather. The first losses were private. A friend's house burned, a neighbor's taken at dawn. Each grief made her steadier. When the war pressed closer, when the men who once called on neighbors became occupiers who took from them, the aunt stepped into a role no woman in her memory had been asked to take. She cut her hair short and wrapped a scarf the color of storm clouds around her head. She moved as both a shadow and a signal, quiet enough to slip within patrols, fierce enough to be remembered. People began to come to her for counsel. Mothers slid notes into her palm. Elders pointed out routes. She listened, and then she did what she had always done. She prepared. Her leadership was not thunderous. It was a steady heat. She organized small units of fighters who knew every bend in the paddy, every hidden inlet of the river. They'd strike in the cool of the morning, taking only what they needed. Supplies, messages, a rope of salt. The aunt taught them to respect the people they fought for. "We are not thieves," she told them once, in a voice that was soft and yielding. "We are a country defending its heartbeat." There were nights where the weight of command felt unbearable. The aunt would walk to the edge of the village and stand where the sea met the sand, letting the wind carry the salt into her face. She thought of the children she had watched play and the old man who slept with one eye open. She thought of her husband, taken in the fury of those first years, and the way grief had sharpened her concentration into something almost surgical. She understood the cause. She also understood the necessity. Her reputation spread beyond the coastline. The occupiers learned of her the name that moved like a rumor through the markets. For them, she was a persistent irritation. For her people, she was a living promise. There were moments of terrible beauty. Entire village slipping into the hills at dusk, lantern by lantern guided by signals only they understood. Brave souls planting false trails to confuse the enemy, a messenger arriving with news and collapsing into the aunt's arms, exhausted but alive. She celebrated what they could. It was a small celebration, tea brewed over a tiny flame, a song hummed under the cracked roof. War, however, is a hungry thing, and it bends even the strongest. The enemy adapted. Their patrols became smarter, their punishments crueler. Allies were captured, supply lines were cut. One terrible morning, the aunt's companions found themselves outnumbered, trapped between cliffs and open sea. The battle there, on that rocky ridge, was not a glorious charge, but a desperate calculus. The aunt moved among her wounded binding arms with pieces of cloth, whispering names and orders. When the last moment came and capture seemed inevitable, she refused to surrender to despair. She chose endurance, escape where possible, courage where not. Captured at last, she was taken away from the land she had loved with a love that was both tender and severe. They tried to break her by isolating her, by stripping privilege, by making the days all the same, gray, empty, long. But even behind walls, Diane remained a leader. She wrote letters with a hand that never trembled. She spoke in the market of ideas that could not be caged. People who visited her with a new steadiness in their steps, as they had borrowed a piece of her courage. Children who heard tales of her at night talked herself in with a fiercer determination to grow up brave. Time did what it does to every life. Diane grew thinner, her hair threaded with silver, her face carved by seasons of sorrow and command. Yet the core of her, unyielding, principled, kind, in its tough way, remained. Those who had fought alongside her called her a mother. Those who only knew the stories called her a warrior. And the land, always the silent arbiter, kept her memory like a seed kept under glass, fragile but waiting for warmth. Thank you.